Today we're going to be taking a look at a short video from Nic Lesmeister. He's the director of the Gateway Center for Israel. This is another example of a Messianic Jewish organization that agrees with orthodoxy with respect to Torah and the Sinai covenant and the New Covenant and all of that, in opposition to the Hebrew Roots movement and, of course, First Fruits of Zion. So let's take a look and see what he has to say.
One of the most unhealthy and wrong theologies of Israel is called one law theology, or the Hebrew Roots movement. In short, it claims that it was always God's desire for Gentiles to live a Torah-observant life, even after putting their faith in Jesus.
Okay, so this is, in a nutshell, right, what is wrong with the Hebrew Roots movement. They have this foundational belief, this fundamental belief that Torah is eternal, that it was meant for all times, all peoples, all places. They're going to disagree about what that looks like. They're going to disagree within that movement about exactly what Gentiles are supposed to do with respect to Torah observance, but they're all going to proclaim that central role of Torah in God's redemptive plan. So let's keep going.
And Gentiles should be under the one law of Torah. The proponents of this movement claim Christians should strictly keep the Sabbath, celebrate all of the Jewish biblical holidays instead of Christian holidays like Christmas or Easter, and should even maintain a kosher diet. Setting aside the technical theological errors of this belief,
I love that line, setting aside the technical theological errors, because they are massive, they are foundational, and they affect all sorts of things. They affect Christology, soteriology, eschatology. They are big errors. But he is going to focus in on one important aspect of that error, one consequence of it that I think is super important as well. So let's hear what he has.
Why this theology is so dangerous. It's a defiance of God's creative purposes. If you were born a Gentile, there is nothing wrong with you. God accepts you in Jesus as a Gentile and makes no demand that you live a Jewish life.
All right, so let's pause with that thought, right? He's absolutely right. There is nothing wrong with being a Gentile. In the New Covenant, a Gentile approaches God exactly the same way as a Jew, through faith in Jesus Christ, by grace through faith. It doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter what your background, doesn't matter what you've done. That approach to God is exactly the same. There's nothing wrong with being a Gentile. Again, the Hebrew Roots movement doesn't see it that way. They see that as something, as an error, as a problem to overcome, when of course it is not.
Similarly, if you were born Jewish, God makes no demand that you forego your identity and stop living a Jewish life, even after putting your faith in Jesus.
As I've said from the beginning, my opposition to First Fruits of Zion and the Hebrew Roots movement in general, it's not about Jews. It's not about Messianic Jews. I am not telling someone who is Jewish by ethnicity how they ought to relate to their ancestry and to that heritage when they're a believer in Jesus.
God created the distinction of Jew and Gentile. Just as he created male and female, or day and night, it was God's plan that each of these would maintain their distinct identities but learn to love and serve the other in mutual submission. In Acts 15, the Jewish leaders of the Jesus-believing community decided Gentiles did not need to take on Jewish identity in order to be saved.
All right, Acts 15, as we know, is very central to the arguments, along with Matthew 5, of Hebrew Roots movement teachers. And they basically are saying that at the Jerusalem Council, those four distinctives were not meant to be the end of it, but the beginning, that Gentile followers of Jesus were supposed to take on Torah, were supposed to learn Torah observance in the synagogues, etc., etc. And that's not how this Messianic Jewish organization that Nic represents, that's not how they see it, because of course they're seeing it as historically it's been understood and the Orthodox view of that passage.
Made clear that Gentiles could be assured that God accepts them as they are. It also showed that the Jewish believers continued to maintain an observant, faithful Jewish life after putting their faith in Jesus.
All right, and that, of course, is a big argument with First Fruits of Zion when they look at the book of Acts, is that Paul, James, Peter, the rest of them were fully Torah observant. And I might have a slightly different understanding of what the book of Acts is saying than Nick does, but it's a secondary issue, right? Because, of course, they're Jewish. Right? And they were raised under the law. They lived through that transition to the new covenant, and the church was figuring those things out. Again, it's not my place, and I'm not going to try to tell Jewish followers of Jesus what their relationship is to those Jewish distinctives, whether they want to keep them or whether they don't. That's not a matter of righteousness anymore. However, the Hebrew Roots movement is going to approach that in a very different way.
We encourage and honor our Jewish members to continue to live a Jewish life. We enjoy celebrating the Jewish holidays with them, finding deeper understanding of God as we do. But we also honor and value the traditions of the Christian church.
All right, so there was an important thing right there. He said we honor, we encourage that embrace of Jewish tradition. And there's a big step between that and saying that it's a matter of righteousness, right? The Hebrew Roots movement, First Fruits of Zion, have come out in their recent What We Believe statement and said that Jewish followers of Jesus are obligated to the Sinai covenant as a matter of righteousness, right? So if you are Jewish and you are a follower of Jesus and you're not keeping kosher or the Sabbath or something like that, then you're sinning. And that is a big step, right? That is a big distinctive to make. Here, he's saying something very important about what our obligations to the law are. Let's continue to listen.
With the first century apostles, that no greater burdens should be laid upon the Gentiles in order to receive salvation.
All right. So you've heard it from another Messianic Jewish organization, right? Yet another one that would say that no, Torah is not for all people, all places, all times. No, it's not the foundation of how we live in Christ. Again, if you are Jewish and you want to embrace that heritage and you want to make that a part of your faith in Jesus, go right ahead. All right? No issue with that at all. The question here, the fundamental question here, however, is what was the original purpose and intent of God with the Sinai covenant? And again, I agree with this Messianic Jewish organization about these fundamental truths. They and I disagree with the Hebrew Roots movement and First Fruits of Zion. Have a blessed day, and let's continue to have fruitful and polite and useful conversations in the comments. God bless.